Far West already runs decently out of the box, but if you're on AMD hardware that is not RDNA 4, the upscaler options are way more limited than they should be. So today we're fixing that. Hey guys, welcome back to GeekJ, where we make tech, tutorials and gaming simpler and better. For today's video, we're optimizing Far West, the recently released early access co-op shooter with robot cowboys, magic, monsters, and a whole lot of dust flying everywhere. The default options are okay, but especially for AMD card owners that aren't on the latest RDNA 4 hardware, the options are extremely limited. So we're gonna fix that. But first, let's take a look at what the game gives us out of the box. And for the people that ask, this is the Steam overlay on the top left, as you can see over here. And it's very convenient for me. It doesn't cause any issues as other overlays. Let's go into options and it defaults into video options. And as you can see, we do get a few anti-aliasing options over here, and they range from FXAA, TAA, and we get to the TSR, which is, you know, the native Unreal Engine 5 kind of anti-aliasing / upscaler solution. Well, the game defaults to TAA, so we'll leave it there for the baseline. I'm setting everything to the maximum possible setting and disabling the usual suspects like motion blur, because you already know how we do things around here. So let me see, lumen illumination, ragdoll amount, phosphorus quality, everything is probably at the maximum setting possible. We're just gonna disable the motion blur over here. Other than that, I don't see any big outliers. I'm gonna apply settings. I'm gonna create a new solo session over here just for testing purposes. FPS at 75. Was there a limit? Yes, there was. Let's do unlimited over here, apply settings. And we are getting around 140 FPS. Now we can check visual quality basically and performance in the opening town. And as you can see, TAA looks fine overall, a bit too sharp, I guess, at some points, and maybe a little bit too pixely, like we still see the staircasing effect and stuff like that. So if we head outside, we can see we are still maintaining the average of 140 FPS around here. And let's go ahead and run back and forth in this opening section over here. This isn't too bad. It's pretty good. But yeah, we do see some staircasing effect, especially in the shadows. Let me go back into the video options. Render quality is at 100%. We can go to 110%. I don't know what that means. It's better image quality. Defaults to 100, so I'm not gonna mess about with that. In this basically first town run, we're averaging around 140 to 150 FPS depending on the place we're standing at, I guess. It's not bad, but this is just the starting point, and we do see, in my opinion, a little bit of over sharpening and some pixelation and some staircasing effect kind of almost everywhere, even though we are full screening this, and this is windowed full screen, hence we don't have access to the resolution, and that means we are on native 1080p resolution right now. So let's check out some of the other options. We're gonna go with FXAA. I'm gonna apply settings and we're gonna see how this looks. Ooh, and yeah, that doesn't look good. Unfortunately, we do get a lot of pixel instability. We can see a lot of pixel shimmering, and Yeah, this isn't very good. Yeah, we do get a lot of staircasing effect. Image quality, yeah, is worse than TAA, unfortunately. The instability is what is killing this. Like, even when we're not moving the character, we're not doing anything with the camera, just because we have like some kind of movement to imitate like how characters breathe or whatever you can see in the distance in the saloon. All those lines are kind of moving, and we have pixel shimmering and instability everywhere. So that's not a very good showing, unfortunately, for this. It's a far less stable option. It looks that it's a bit sharper, so we have to pay attention, you know, to finer details to find differences usually. But in my experience so far, FXAA is a bit blurrier, and we do get staircasing effect and instability, but in this case it looks a little bit sharper than TAA even, and everything is kind of over exaggerated. We get a lot of shimmering, instability, especially with fences, wires, distant edges. Even if we walk at the same route, you're clearly seeing like how this looks. Unfortunately, not a very good showing for FXAA. So let me go back to the beginning over here, so we can change to TSR, which is the other anti-aliasing option we're getting. So let's go to options, scroll down, and we're gonna go with TSR. Then it's still on 100% render scale, and let's see how this looks. So as I mentioned before, this is Unreal Engine's 5 own AppScaler / anti-aliasing solution, and it is basically depending on the game, but TSR can look pretty good sometimes, but it can also get soft or a little smeary in motion especially. So let's test out how this looks. Basically, we're gonna see if I move the camera how this looks. This is native resolution. We are getting a bit less FPS, like 2 FPS less, which is like a minuscule difference. And I think this is the best looking solution so far, if I'm being honest. Yeah, this looks pretty good actually. Even during movement, it doesn't look over sharpened, and we have very good image stability, and we don't get any staircasing effect. So that's pretty good. 134, 133, 35. Okay, so let's go back to FXAA, apply settings, 142, 141, 142. Okay, and then we're gonna go back to TAA, check that out, 140, 139, 140. Yep, okay. So they're all pretty close to each other, but as of now, as we can see, TSR offers the best solution so far. So the only other real app scaling option we get is FSR, and on my RX 6800 XT, this falls back to FSR 3.1.5. So we're gonna test the native, then quality, and then performance or ultra performance, whatever is available, obviously if the game exposes that preset. And what we actually can do is, now that we are on TSR, we could probably go with 70%, which is quality mode, and we are at around 172 frames per second, and we do look okay-ish, I guess. And then we can go with 50%, which I'm guessing is close to balanced. And we are at around 200 FPS. And we do get a lot of instability. We get ghosting when we move the camera. So already we're not doing that great. And if we go to 20%, I'm guessing this is going to be ultra performance. Yeah, this is looking very, very rough. But just to have an apples to apples comparison, let me go with 100%, and then I'm going to go with AMD FSR. And as you can see, we only have this option. We get quality, balance, performance, and ultra performance. So, right, we can only compare with quality. So let's go with quality over here. I'm gonna guess this is locked. Yeah. Quality looks really, really good. And we're getting 165, 167, 68 frames per second over here. Image stability is pretty good. Text readability is okay, but I can see some staircasing effect over there on my cursor right now, or crosshairs, and when I move there is some pixel instability, but it's not too bad. It's pretty good actually if we're playing on quality mode. So yeah, pretty good stuff. Let me go back. I don't see a lot of staircasing, but when I move the camera, there is a little bit of staircasing added. So yeah, that's pretty good. Let me go on ahead and test out TSR and then 70% again, which is the equivalent to quality, I'm guessing. And it does look far worse than FSR 3.1.5. We have instability and some kind of shimmering over there at the cables, and it looks a little bit blurrier, and at the same time it's trying to over sharpen some other parts, especially when we have a static camera. Righty then. So let's go back to FSR. Let's try ultra performance. Okay, this looks pretty bad. Let me make sure. Yeah, we're using AMD FSR Ultra Performance over here. We do get over 200 FPS, so the performance gain is not exactly there, but at the same time, this looks horrible. And unfortunately, these are the only options we get. We could try like balanced, see how that looks. Just for fun. And yeah, I mean, 180, 177 to 180 is our average. We would get a bit more performance basically, but as a disclaimer, which I mentioned in most of my videos, I am recording with OBS, so that takes away a fair bit of performance because I do record in pretty high quality, so we can have a very clear image on our YouTube videos. As you can see, those lines are kind of almost disappear. When we move, they do go transparent when we see a lot of staircasing over there. FSR does have an issue with transparency and movement. As you can see, if we're not moving, still things look very, very okay-ish. So it's not that much of an exaggeration of the staircasing effect, but then pixel shimmering, instability, and a lot of staircasing when we do any kind of movement or something moves in front of our screen. So yeah, that's not a great showing. And I'm gonna go back to ultra performance over here, and as you can see, a very, very unstable image. Everything is shimmering with ultra performance on FSR 3.1.5, which is our fallback, and a lot of pixelation, shimmering, instability. We have halos all over the place, and luckily we don't have a lot of ghosting, almost no ghosting, while with the TSR showing we had a lot of ghosting. So let me go back and do that. We're gonna go with TSR with the lowest setting possible, which is 20%. And as you can see, this looks a lot worse. So we have a lot of ghosting and repeated frames over here. But either way, the way I would choose to play this, let's go back to 100% over here and apply, would probably be quality. And then I would turn on FSR Frame Generation, which is the only frame generation technology we have available for us over here. And I just want to test out how this works and feels with the default frame generation. So as you can see, we do get 250 to 255 frames per second over here. It's not a bad showing. This is how the game looks and performs. We don't get any weird ghosting issues, but we do get all the issues that come with FSR 3.1.5 basically. Even on quality, we do get some instability. A pinch of ghosting, just a little bit. As you can see, we do get a little bit of ghosting, actually a fair bit of ghosting, especially if we move the camera like this. And when we're playing a game like this is not going to be great, unfortunately, as we want the picture to be as stable as possible with no ghosting, so we're able to perform, you know, our headshots and stuff, or accurately shoot someone or something. So basically we're pushing the built-in FSR path to its most extreme setting, so we have a proper before and after comparison once FSR 4 is running in the game. But yeah, keep an eye on the on-screen results as I walk the same street route up and down for each option. So far I'm gonna have, you know, the typical text I put on the bottom left, I'm guessing, or top left, haven't decided yet, of the screen, so you guys know what preset I'm running at that specific moment, and we can like compare how these options look and perform for us. And it basically gives us a clean baseline for both image quality and performance before we start changing any of the things we're gonna change basically. So let me do a reset, and then we're just going to disable motion blur. And the other thing I want to make sure I don't forget is that we are on unlimited FPS over here. So let's quit out of the game. So now that the vanilla options are out the way, let's see what we can do to optimize this cool little game. So first off, I suggest you use DLSS-Swapper to update the existing OptiScaler binaries we have available, as you can see over here. And if we click on our game, one thing you will notice, and sadly this is becoming a pattern in recent releases, is that even though Far West has FSR options in-game, the FSR binaries are not detected here, as you can see. So basically only the DLSS binaries are detected and populated, which usually means the FSR binaries are sitting in a weird plugin location instead of the normal executable folder. And we'll get to that in a second, but the first order of business would be to update to the latest DLSS binaries available inside DLSS-Swapper. We're gonna actually go on ahead and do that. Click swap over here. 3.10.6 is the latest version for all of these binaries. And we're just gonna close out of this and exit out of the software. So now that this is done, we're gonna move to the fun part. So let's use one of my favorite tools here on GeekJ as of late, which is OptiScaler-Client, of course. There is a new update, so make sure you check out the updates by going to the GitHub repository over here. But yeah, this little open source tool makes installing OptiScaler extremely simple in most cases. You can find links for all the software I'm using in the description below. Unfortunately, OptiScaler-Client didn't really work, so we're gonna do it the manual way. So as you can see over here, I do have the OptiScaler 0.9.1 final version downloaded from their official GitHub page. I have opened the Win64 location that the Far West actual executable is located, and we're gonna go on ahead and select everything over here and then deselect what we don't need. So the linux.sh, and then the readme and licenses are things I'm not gonna need. So then I'm just gonna drag and drop everything in this location over here. And then we're gonna run the setup windows.bat installer. And over here, we're gonna go through the installation, and we can actually see for the first time in GeekJ, the new installation prompts over here. I'm gonna select the XGI as the injection method over here and press enter. Then it is asking us again if we have an NVIDIA or an AMD Intel GPU. You must answer correctly depending on what hardware is currently installed on your computer. I am on an AMD GPU system, so I'm going to select one and press enter again. And then we can see that they are going to try to use DLSS inputs to replace with FSR XeSS, enables NVIDIA spoofing and all that good stuff. I'm just going to press one for yes. It is done. And we can press any key to continue. So I'm going to press any key. And then we can run the game once again and see if this works. And the manual installation actually worked. So we have to wait a little bit for the shaders to finish compiling. Until this finishes compiling, we can go through the game options and see what is available to us right now. So let's go on ahead and do that. Defaults into the video options, and let's scroll down. And as you can see, now we do have access to the DLSS option, and we get the quality, balanced, performance, and ultra performance presets. So we're gonna go with quality. And as you can see, motion blur, the FPS limit are both in the setting we had them on, which is motion blur disabled and unlimited frames per second. So I'm gonna apply these settings, create a new session. Okay, and once we are back into the game world, we're gonna press the insert key on our keyboard. And let me move this a little bit further up. And you should now see the OptiScaler overlay, as you can see on my screen over here. And we have a lot of different app scalers available to us. So from the drop down over here, I'm gonna select the FSR3.x and click on this button that says change app scaler. And as you can see over here, we still just get access to FSR 3.1.5 instead of the 4.0.2c. So it's not detected. So basically just close out of this one, and then we're gonna quit out of the game again. So obviously, because we're not using OptiScaler-Client, we have to do this the manual way. And you can find this binary in many different ways. I'm going to show you the manual way. You can even try installing the OptiScaler-Client version again and just copy over the 4.0.2c that comes with it, and then go on ahead and uninstall it, blah, blah, blah. It takes a little bit more time, but as you can see over here, I already have it downloaded, and you can find it on the GitHub and their official Discord. So feel free to use whichever method you want. And basically, I'm just going to copy over this little file over here. And after replacing it, we can check if it becomes available in the game. So let's go on ahead and run the game again. Let's create another solo session once more. Once we're loaded into the game, we're going to press the insert key on our keyboard. And I'm gonna move this up a bit again. 3.x, change upscaler, and as you can see, it is actually working this time. We can see that the FSR 4.0.2c is selected and active. Thankfully, even though the original FSR 4 files were not in the correct location, and they were, because I found the original files, they were in some obscure folder. It's really nice to see that it does work with the OptiScaler override once again. So next, I always untick the use FSR inputs over here because the DLSS inputs are almost always higher quality than the default FSR inputs. And then I'm going to hit save INI and then close. And let's make sure we have the correct settings. FPS limit is set to unlimited, no motion blur, and we're using NVIDIA DLSS quality, which is not NVIDIA DLSS for the people that keep saying kind of silly things in the comments. And sometimes I have to remove some of the comments because they have false information and just confuse people. And when I try to correct the people and try to push them, to edit their comment to have correct information, they get very, very rude. And then you guys are just gonna accept that I will give you a very, slight touch of the ban hammer, and then you just have to accept and move on. Because if you're rude when I'm trying to be courteous, this is what you get. Anyway, moving on, quality, apply settings. And we're going to do our usual run over here and see how the game looks and performs. So 135 FPS, 136. So that is pretty good. We're looking very, very nice. I don't see the goat. Interesting. Oh, now I see the goat, because it's a very good indicator of what is happening with the app scaler, especially when you move the camera erratically. I don't see any ghosting. Let me go back to the initial spot over here. The game looks very, very sharp, but not over sharpened like before. I don't see any staircasing effect. Even when I'm moving the camera, everything seems to be very, very stable. I don't see any simmering or instability in the pixels. That is pretty good. It almost looks like native resolution, basically. That is very, very nice. Okay, let me go to the balanced option. And yeah, the first time you hit apply after you select FSR 4.0.2c, it's going to take some time to switch to the other presets. So don't worry about it. Let it finish. Do not, forcefully close the game and stuff like that. It's fine. Yeah, again, very, very stable. I don't see any issues with the image, and we did gain a few frames per second. I think I do start seeing, especially when I move the camera, a little bit of an issue with cables over there. And as you can see, we are upscaling from 636p to 1080p, so it is actually working. But yeah, when we move, we do see a little bit of an issue with the cables over there. Not too much though, but everything else is remaining super, super stable in the game. And now let's try the crazy thing, which is the ultra performance setting. Apply settings. Again, just wait for it, and it's going to eventually apply this preset. And as you can see, it's a night and day difference if we compare it to the TSR and the FSR 3.1.5 presets of this. We do get some image instability, especially over here behind the neon sign of the gun. As you can see, we do get some weirdness, and the cables do get somewhat of a staircasing effect, but they are still visible, except for these cables where they do tend to disappear. Don't forget, we're upscaling from 360p to 1080p, but the image is still looking pretty amazing like this in comparison to TSR and FSR 3.1.5. I wouldn't choose to play like this, but if it's your only option, obviously you have to, do what it takes and accept some facts when your hardware is not strong enough. And still, I don't see ghosting, no smearing, no nothing. I don't see any weird halos. This is holding up amazingly well in comparison to the other upscalers. So yeah, that's pretty crazy and pretty good performance as well. Obviously, as we've talked about this before, FSR 4 int 8 does have diminishing returns, so the higher we set the upscaler or the lower the preset, basically, we gain less and less performance back. But yeah, it is what it is. Let's go back into the game menus, but yeah, quality is the preset I accept most people to use. So let's go on ahead and apply the quality preset over here, and it should give us a clearer image than the built-in FSR path as we saw before, while keeping performance very, very strong, because for some reason Unreal Engine 5 really likes upscaling. It does give you back a lot of performance, so just going the quality way is really, really good for the visuals and the performance as well. Ultra performance is more of a stress test for the upscaler. I don't think anyone would choose to play in ultra performance mode, but it does look insane with FSR 4, even on this int 8 version, which is obviously a step down from the default full fat version of FSR 4.1 that runs exclusively on RDNA 4. It is a very big deal for RDNA 2 and RDNA 3 users because the image should hold together much better as we experience this now than the fallback FSR 3.1.5 path and the built-in TSR path. And honestly, this is already a huge win. We get better image quality, better scaling behavior, and far more flexibility than the vanilla AMD options. We do get basically XeSS as well, which is very important for the next part. So here at GeekJ, we want the best optimization, not just the easiest one. So let's keep this beauty to the quality preset, but we're gonna take it one step further. So we're gonna exit out of the in-game menu, gonna press insert once again on our keyboard, and we're gonna check this frame generation a little bit further down. And in this section, we're gonna select the DLSS-G via Streamline option, and then instead of FSR-FG, which we experienced earlier, it's gonna be the exact same version if we select FSR-FG, we're gonna go with XeFG. For any of the options, make sure you always select Save INI and then Close. And as you can see, it does say with red font over here, Save INI and restart to apply the changes. So that's exactly what we're gonna do. Okay, we're back into the main menu over here. I would suggest we go back into the options, hit video over here, and I would suggest we go with NVIDIA Frame Generation, which is available now, and we enable this, and then we press Apply Settings. And now, before we load up our game, I would suggest to just press the Insert key on our keyboard once again, and you can see that it does have this checkbox unchecked right now that says active. We're gonna check this box that says active over here, Save INI, and as you can see in a yellow font, it does advise us to restart the game to apply the correct XeFG settings. So if that's the case for you, because sometimes we don't need to do this, but most of the time we do, I would suggest we just restart the game to apply the frame generation settings that we just selected correctly. So we have to do exactly that. Just make sure you save the INI, then close, and then we're gonna go back and quit out of the game. And once again, we're gonna fire up our game. Okay, the game has loaded. Let's create a solo session or Steam Friends only session, whatever, once again. And now that we are back in the game world, we're gonna press the insert key one more time. And you should now see the frame generation saying current Streamline FG state on, and it has some green text without any warnings. So that means we've done everything correctly and frame generation is working perfectly fine. Now, under the frame rate section over here, these are the low latency or latency reduction technologies over here. What I would suggest you do is bring this up to the optimal number that you know works best with your monitor. If you do not know what the optimal number is, just click on this little VRR frame cap calculator over here. Set as FPS limit. If you click this little button, it will put the number that is optimal for your monitor over here, and then you can just click on the apply limit and you're going to be set. And now we're gonna save INI and close. And now we're basically good to go. Your game should be looking amazing, running super smooth. So let me go outside and do a little run around. And it does feel super smooth because our base frame rate is 81. So way above 60. We get 0 ghosting, and as you can see on the top left of our screen, through the Steam overlay we can see all the details that we need to see. And yeah, to top it off, we do get higher frame rates per second, but your GPU and your power bill should thank you, because as you can see, the GPU now is at 75% only. It's staying pretty cool at 50 something degrees, and it's not super loud. The fans are not going crazy. The same for my CPU, because the game engine just produces 81 real FPS, and then it basically doubles that through the XeFG Frame Generation technology. And we are utilizing XeLL as well, so we get minimal input latency as well. And lower GPU usage and CPU usage basically means lower power usage, and that means spending less money on your power bill. So that is super cool. Look at how this game looks. The art style is very cool. It doesn't look, you know, crazy realistic or anything like that, but this looks flawless, like super sharp and extremely smooth. This is so nice. So that's the full Far West optimization path for AMD users basically, but you can do this with Intel and NVIDIA GPUs as well, because OptiScaler is manufacturer agnostic basically. So what we did is we saw the vanilla baseline first, then we updated the DLSS binaries. We installed OptiScaler manually because remember, OptiScaler-Client didn't really work for us, and we were able to force FSR for the int8 version, and then we added XeFG Frame Generation and XeLL, which is the latency reduction technology developed by Intel. And yeah, it was a very smooth setup, very easy, and the gameplay looked amazing. Even on ultra performance, FSR 4 int8 looks amazing, and it performs really nice with our optimal settings. So yeah, if this helped you make Far West look cleaner and run smoother on your setup, smash that like button, subscribe, hit that bell so you never miss a GeekJ video. If you want to take it further, consider joining the GeekJ squad for early access and exclusive perks, or drop a super thanks if you're feeling generous, of course. Massive shout out to my channel architects, Paris STR and Kostas Dari. You guys are legends. Drop your results in the comments below. I'm curious on what GPU you're using, what FPS did you get with FSR 4 plus the XeFG technology, and yeah, you know this, I read every single one of your comments, and I'm gonna see you guys in the next one. Bye.